All right, I want to start off right away talking about the new crowd favorite here at Creekside, Boy Band, Volume 1, by the one and only Darren Cioffi of Principal Cigars.
Crowd favorite in my living room, too.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Do you just have like stacks of them there and people who come in just, and you have one record or one vinyl in your record player and it's just Nina Simone on repeat?
Yeah, I mean, it's 2025. We're not spinning vinyl at Boxwood Hall, but...
I don't know. At your house, you might be.
Yeah.
Good point.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. Okay, BG was just saying before we started this how you just really learned about what Boy Band is, even though we've been putting out a lot of content on it.
I'm sorry.
So you're clearly
I'm sorry. I do watch it. It's just, man, I'm just, but I wanted to hear it straight from the source.
And so do I. And I think everybody else would appreciate it too. But
yeah, so I met Darren, I don't know, 30 minutes ago. And one of my first questions was, tell me about this boy band situation. What's going on here? So I thought you described it well, which makes sense.
That was the elevator pitch version.
Yeah, it worked. I'm gonna buy them all.
and we got more floors now. So give us the longer one.
Yeah.
This was it was an idea that evolved. I had a long time ago. My first thought was, giving the same instructions to different master blenders. If I said to different guys, hey, this is what I'm looking for, like how would they interpret those instructions? And then I started just thinking it through, and I was thinking about how, I deal with a lot of really great blenders, and I didn't want to, depending on who became a part of the project, I didn't want to create a situation where there was a right or wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't want people saying, oh, this guy did it so much better than that guy. So I was thinking, like, what could I use that was more subjective? And I was literally at a urinal one day. I'm standing there, and I just thought music. Like, why don't I use music for this project? And so we came up with the idea where we were going to give 5 master blenders the same musical inspiration, something long format, an entire album, and just keep the size the same. So the only instruction that we gave them was we wanted a 6x50 Toro. Everything else was up to them. They were to listen to the album and create the perfect accompaniment to it. That's cool. And selecting that album was a lot of work. I mean, it took months. I listened to a lot of music. Rolling Stone has a list of like top, I think it was 100 albums that tell a story.
Yeah.
Because I wanted something that was like a complete work, not just a bunch of songs thrown together. We also wanted something timeless, and I live in Nashville. I know a lot of musicians. I thought about using something that no one had heard before. Maybe that we could even give with the cigars. But in the end, we decided to use Nina Simone's I Put a Spell on You, the whole album.
Why?
A few factors. I mean, it kind of checked all the boxes, and I listened to the album a million times. The thing that I like the most about it is, even though it's like introspective and cool, chill music that you can enjoy while you smoke, every song to me on that album is positive. They're all positive songs. Of course, there's a couple of showstoppers that everybody's heard, but the entire album in its entirety, even though it's a cool, jazzy, introspective album, they're all positive in nature. So it just kind of was the perfect accompaniment for the first version of this project.
And then so the first time you smoked these, did they send you back like options for their blend, or they were like, this is the one?
They tried.
Okay.
A couple of them tried.
And you were like, no.
And I had to say, no, this is your choice. It's your decision. To be honest, like I smoked 1 or 2 cigars, early on, like some samples, rejects. I have not, since we've had this out, had the time to sit and smoke the finished version of all of these cigars, or at least that's been properly aged and,
Huh.
So it's something I'm looking forward to. Unfortunately, like every cigar I smoke is usually with purpose. I have to test something or whatever. So when I smoke that, will be purely for enjoyment. And I haven't smoked a cigar purely for enjoyment in a few months, but it's on my list.
So how would you do like one a day in 5 consecutive days, or would you do like as many back to back as you could?
I would never tell anybody how to smoke something, whatever your smoking
but
style
how would you
is.
do it?
Me personally, I probably would look forward to something, have it clean. It's the kind of album you can listen to 5 days in a row and not be bored. So
yeah.
From the music perspective, one thing I have heard people say is that a lot of I should back up and say we were lucky in that we called it legendary because 5 of the most legendary master blenders.
Yeah, that was going to be my
follow
follow-up to this. It's like the Hall of Fame.
It is.
In one
It's
5
crazy.
It is.
It is crazy. I joke that it was like the 27 Yankees of cigar collaborations, but
Yes.
but I think a lot of the cigars there are not typical of what those master blenders normally make. Like they really took it seriously. I think that you'll find some of that stuff out of character for what they're known for.
And I saw even, it looks like there's one in here they went with like a Connecticut shade, which I
Yeah,
thought was so
yeah.
interesting because
Yeah.
most of them are Habanos.
Show
or
the
like
world.
that
Show the
type of
world what's
shade.
in there.
And then it
Let's
was
see.
so cool to see like the first one. I don't know. Am I in frame here, Chris? The first one, which is Hochi Blanco, he went with a totally different wrapper than the other 4,
Yeah.
which I was like,
Yeah, it's
that
a great
talks to
smoke.
the subjectivity of the interpretation.
One thing I've been noticing is that a lot of those cigars are very smoky. Like they'll have a really higher volume. You know, there are some spiritual
Yes.
similarities. And I think
Bring it
that,
on.
Maybe the music told those guys at least a similar thing. You know, it's a cigar you're smoking in a fairly quiet situation, and you just want to feel that volume and that wafting smoke.
I love the packaging.
Love the packaging. Most of your packaging is always awesome because it's inspired by real old art.
We did decide that because the album was from the mid 60s, I think it was released in 65, so we did the style of the art in 60s. So
It's awesome.
if like for a future volume we used a 90s album, we would hopefully do 90s artwork and
Yeah.
etc.
90s.
And I mentioned this a couple seconds ago, but it is a Hall of Fame lineup of master blenders and factories. But the thing that I always have thought is so cool about your portfolio of cigars is it's always different. Who, like, you release a new brand or a new line, the most exciting part to me is like, who did Darren work with to blend this cigar? Because it's never going to be like, oh, we only make cigars at KBF
Right.
forever, and this is the entire thing we do, or we only make with EP. It's constantly changing, but the profile of principle remains the same, which is, I think, the coolest part.
Yeah, I mean, we
Like,
have
what's the
there's sort of like a
story
spirit-
behind
There's
that?
definitely a spirit that, you know, our cigars generally speaking tend to be medium bodied, which is the, you know, what many say is the Goldilocks zone, you know, the area at which we can show the most depth. We're focused on flavor and very much so on mechanics, you know. I think the mechanics of
What do you mean by
cigar-
mechanics?
Mechanics like the, you know, how it functions, the temperature at which it smokes, the volume of smoke output, you know, the everything besides the flavor that delivers your experience. There, you know, you can't just blend a cigar and you're done. I mean, everything impacts what you're experiencing. Like I'm smoking the Grand Pyramid. This cigar is designed to be a certain way, right? Like at this factory, we weigh every single cigar individually, for example. So anything that's on the high end of the spectrum or the low end of the spectrum, we reject and just keep the ones in the middle.
Wow.
But for this cigar, the ones that are like extra packed, I actually quite enjoy those. So I'll bring them back just for myself to enjoy, you know, but it's not the same experience as how the cigar is intended, right? So all of these things go into that finished product. And like I'm on the Cigar Journal panel, and
Yeah.
when we do the reviews, I spend a lot of time, probably more than they want, writing about the mechanics, because it really is such an important part of the experience. And things like that, and the general idea of the complexity and where they live on the spectrum, I would like to think, you know, travel with us from factory to factory.
And how did you end up? The one common theme, at least I'm 99% sure, but correct me if I'm wrong, is they're all made in the Dominican. Like they're different factories, but they're made in the Dominican. How, like, why is that? Why not Nicaragua? Why not Honduras? Why not Miami?
Well, I mean, forgive me.
No, take a second.
These microphones weigh about 10 pounds.
That's why we got you the armrest up here.
We well, we started there, of course, and it's where most of my contacts are. It's where we enjoy playing. But you know, in the Dominican, you have access to all that other stuff. I mean, I
true.
have some cigars like the Decien, for example, that's more Nicaraguan tobacco than Dominican tobacco. So it's not that we can't play in those sandboxes, but you know, for us, it's a very sophisticated place where we can get a lot done. There's a lot of variety. It's you know, the business environment is good.
Way easier to travel to.
It's way easier to travel to. I mean, that's not to say we won't ever do anything anywhere else, but up to this point, it's strictly been Dominican.
And that cigar you're smoking, I remember I smoked it for the first time with you in Nashville at your house, and you handed it to me, and I was like, I have never smoked a cigar of this size, and I have no desire to do so, but he's handing it to me and I'm not going to say no. and you're like, just smoke it. And I'm like, okay. And like, I did not want to smoke that cigar, and I lit it up and I smoked that thing down to the nub. I remember and just being like, the flavor experience. I've never had this in a cigar of this size. Normally it's so much more watered down or more airy, or at least to me.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
and I just enjoyed it so much.
It's like I always say, the market makes certain cigars certain ways because they think that's what the consumer base expects, right? Like your typical Connecticut smoker might expect certain things, your typical Maduro smoker, and your typical smoker of big ring gauge cigars. But none of those cigars need to necessarily fall into those buckets, right? Like, yeah, it's a 60 ring gauge cigar, but it's a big cigar for people who don't like big cigars, right? Yes. It's flavorful, it's elegant, it's layered, it unfolds, it gives you everything that you would typically look for in a more sophisticated Vitola. For
how many countries of origin exist in that blend?
I think originally it was 5. I don't know what the current blend that I'm smoking is. I think this is from about a year and a half ago.
So the blend changes just to meet the same profile.
Yeah, I mean, aviators in particular. I mean, our since the beginning, we started with aviators, right? And there's a lot of really finicky, flavorful tobaccos with a lot of personality, and you're definitely not just making the same blend every single time you produce. I mean, the tiny changes in these tobaccos seriously impact the finished product. So, you know, typical aviator productions are usually about 5,000 cigars, and when we go to do a production for one Vitola, the first thing you do, of course, is just make the cigar like you did the last time, and then see, you know, is there anything that needs to change? Did any of the tobacco, you know, you could have one tobacco maybe has a particularly good or, you know, better growing season than what you used before, but that can negatively impact the cigar because maybe it's too strong. You lose some complexity, or some aggressiveness covers up the sweetness, or the effervescence is gone. So it's a balancing act. And I mean, everybody does it. We're just a lot more open to admitting it and opening the books about it. I mean, you know,
I've always appreciated that.
And the other two reasons why I think it's important is that, one, you know, we're interpreting cigars differently whenever we smoke them, right? Like, it's morning, I just took a long drive, you know, I'm going to taste this differently than I might at night after I had a beverage or whatnot. So, you know, why should I be so obsessed on every production being exactly the same when, you know, the person who is perceiving it is going to do so differently anyway? And secondly, you know, we're always discovering new things, finding new tobacco, and the only way to be able to share that with people is to work it into the blends. You know, so if I can, when I'm going to make another production of any given cigar, particularly aviators, if the choice is keep it exactly the same, or maybe it's slightly different, but I think it can be better, we're always going to take, let's make it a little different and better. Because at the end of the day, does it matter that it's the exact same product? I mean, it's going to be in the wheelhouse, but hopefully just always the best we can deliver.
Creekside fam, a little break from the podcast because we have some incredible news. Creekside Cigar Co has been nominated for PCA's Best of the Leaf 2025 for the best cigar lounge in the Midwest. This nomination is all because of you, the amazing community, who continue to support Creekside and make it the spot for great cigars and even better company. But now we need your help to bring this home. Voting is open now until March 6th, so hit the link in the comments or in the bio and cast your vote. Let's make this thing happen. We're also gearing up for PCA. We already have our trip locked in. While we're there, we'll be bringing you exclusive content from the trade show floor. So let us know in the comments what you want to see at PCA, and we'll try and make it happen. Thank you as always for your support. Enjoy the rest of the podcast with Darren. And as always, smoking good company.
I mean, we talked right before we started recording this on the Accomplice series. The white band, the purple band, the green band, the classic, the Corojo, the Connecticut, the Maduro. And how new shipments will come in, and I'll smoke them, and I'll be like, man, I can't stop smoking the classic Toro. Right. And then a year might go by or 6 months goes by, and then it's the classic Robusto or the Connecticut Robusto that becomes the one that I just always smoke. And it seems like they're always slightly changing or evolving.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like one of the number one things I tell people when they're not familiar with Principle and they come in is like, it's an exciting brand to smoke.
Thank you.
Because it's nuanced, it's changing, the brands are really fun and cool, but you can't have a smoking experience across a brand or a portfolio anywhere else like you can. I think with your
It's not
cigars.
apple juice, you know. I mean, it's like wine. Wine is different. It's aging in the barrel. It's changing in the
Yeah.
bottle. It's changing in your glass. It's changing as it sits there based on what you eat. And cigars are the same thing. Like it's this living, breathing, organic thing. It's like a person. So why are we going to force it into a box and try to make it exactly the same all the time?
Yeah, yeah. You got to tell BG and our audience about your smoking championships.
I'm long retired from that stuff.
I know, but but did you know this is a thing? Like
Yeah.
longest ash competitions in the world.
I've
Slow
heard
smoke.
of
Slow smoke.
longest ash
slowest,
competitions.
slowest smoke.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
No, yes. I want to know.
It's still going on. You guys can get out there and compete. They're doing it.
All right.
Yeah,
Start the clock.
Yeah,
it's not,
sign me up.
It's not like cigar smoking. I mean, it's smoking with just the intent of keeping it going a long time. It started out of Croatia. There's a cigar club there, a guy named Marko Bilic who created this event in I forget when it started. Probably like early 2000s. I first did it in 14, I think. It's basically a Moreva-sized cigar. It started off as a Monte 4, and the idea was how long can you smoke it without it going out. But now it's
But you can ash.
yeah, you can't ash for the first 40 minutes.
Okay.
But like a 40-minute ash when you're smoking this way sometimes is a half an inch.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like a big deal.
You're going in for a puff, and you're just hoping that smoke comes out at some point.
It's exactly like sports. It's exactly like how, you know, the 4-minute mile was a big deal until suddenly everybody could do it. It's the same thing. I mean, when the first time I did it, I broke the world record and, you know, won the championship. And I think the time was like an hour 55, which seemed obscene. And I went on to break the world record 8 times. The last time I did it, it was in the neighborhood of 3 hours 48 or something like that. So
This is like in a Corona size.
it's a Moreva.
Oh, really?
So it's
Yeah, yeah.
42 by 5 1/8. And there's a band at 9 centimeters. So you're only smoking a certain portion of it.
We're sitting with a world champion.
No, not anymore.
Eight-time
You know.
world
Yeah.
previous
Autographs
world
after this.
One-time
world
world
championship.
championship. 8-time world record breaker. But no, now it's like
One-time world champion.
if it wasn't fun before, now it's super not fun because you have to pay attention to everything. Like to compete at that level, you have to do things that are absurd. I mean, you're waiting until the last 15 seconds maybe to light it. You're lighting a little dot and then moving that dot around to get the whole end of the cigar lit. I mean, the way you're puffing is changing. You're moving the smoke in and out. It's extremely harsh on the palate. Burning your hands and stuff at the end. Like it's at a level now where that's why I stopped doing it. I mean, if you want to compete seriously, you have to practice. You have to do all things I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
But I encourage you to get involved. I mean,
So
they're doing
what
it.
is the time now? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't. I think I want to say someone broke 4 hours, but it's in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Wow.
That is impressive.
That's insane.
Yeah, a 5 1/8 by 42. You could crush that. You could be a part of the fastest smoking
I was
championship.
gonna say 4 hours. I mean, it's like 4 to 5. I don't know, 4 to 6 cigars.
Toros
for me.
You know, it comes down to do you know your way around a cigar? Because I'm a naturally very fast smoker.
Yeah.
And but I could do this. So
Yeah.
if you just know how
That's
it
impressive.
burns, you
Yeah.
know how they function. Like that's the bottom line is paying attention. You know,
Yeah.
like you have to be totally focused. That's
Wow.
The people that pay
Locked
attention
in.
can win. You know, the folks that are just there to have fun, like you're not going to win, but you're probably better off.
Yeah, you're gonna enjoy yourself. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny. We'll post content on like cutting and lighting cigars and telling stories of smoking cigars in different environments, and there's always people that like to chime in and like, that's not the right way you smoke a cigar. That's not how you cut a cigar. That's not how you do this. And I want your opinion. Somebody who you smoked in championship type smoking environments. You've also been to a factory and smoked cigars, which is wildly different than a cigar lounge in America or in Europe. And you've smoked at your house. You smoked everywhere. What is there a right way to smoke cigars?
No, there is. I mean, the right way is what you enjoy.
Get it lit. Yeah.
People say, "Am I holding it right?" I'm
If you
like,
want, I guess.
hold it how you like. You know, smoke it how you like. I mean, I
Yeah.
know what I like, but I mean, there's some pointers. I would say listen to everyone, listen to all the opinions, but at the end of the day, what you enjoy is the right way to do it. I mean, this is not work. This is enjoyment. You know, I mean, yes, you want to keep the cigar in balance. You want to keep the temperature down. There's certain things you should pay attention to, but the paramount thing is your own pleasure.
All right, what are we smoking? This is my first time trying this one.
Me and you are smoking the same thing, Amber.
Yeah, that's
You got a tiki?
Little Mermaid.
that is
The cocktail
a
collection?
cocktail collection cigar. We had this idea a few years ago. I was on a cocktail podcast, and I was just thinking, man, no one's playing in that space, you know.
Yeah.
And so we decided, well, let's come up with a line where cigars are designed for different cocktails, and we love playing around with the graphics. So we chose 5 different cocktails from 5 different time periods, and started. A buddy of mine in Austria helped me out. He's a guy that consults for like hotels for their beverage programs.
Okay.
And we came up with the blends, and we just had so much other stuff coming out over the last few years that it kept getting put on the back burner. Finally, we just sort of pulled it from the release schedule, and now here and there we'll release something in cocktail collection. And the cigar you're smoking is one of the vitolas for the Tiki, which is the cigar that is meant to pair with the Mai Tai. And that was like the mid-century cocktail of choice. I love that
It's
cigar,
so
man.
delicious.
It's just so bright. It's effervescent. It's beachy. We actually had more of a focus on the spirit of the cigar. Like if a person was going to drink this cocktail, what kind of cigar might they also enjoy? It wasn't so much about like the magical pairing combination of flavors in your mouth. It was more about like, if I'm going to drink a Mai Tai, what am I going to smoke? Yeah. And that kind of bright summer experience is what hit us as.
But it still has
pairing.
body. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
still intense.
No,
but it's got this like really cool, fruity, acidic quality.
It's got the acidity. It's got the effervescence to like cut through those sweet notes in the
It's good.
in the drink.
I think it's really good.
And it's different than I feel like anything else in your lineup.
It's tough. I mean, like that like at KBF we can play in that flavor profile, that like really bright acidic area. Like not a lot of places can work in that
library of
wheelhouse.
tobacco alone.
Yeah, and like in order to, you can't have any of those notes being covered up, and that's an easy thing to bury inside of a wrapper or a heavy binder, and just leaving that stuff to shine where the cigar still has a lot of flavor and body is tricky to make in a lot of places. But for KBF, a lot of their tobacco just lends itself to that style of cigar.
It's so delicious.
That's why you make such great Connecticut's there. It just
Yep.
the fillers are allowed to shine.
What I don't think I've ever asked you this question. I know about your deep roots in art and cigar art and history. When was the first time you were in a cigar factory? Like, how did you end up in a cigar factory and start making cigars?
Good question. I mean, like there was no, I don't even remember when my first cigar was. There was no like aha moment. I didn't just wake up one day and decide I was a cigar guy. But I was in antiques, and I was traveling around the Caribbean, looking for old paper, particularly tobacco artwork.
Of course he was.
Yeah, I know.
It makes so much sense.
I've said this several times, and I'll let you finish. But I've said this several times. Darren is the most interesting man in cigars, possibly in any industry. And it's so true. And I don't say it like as like a cliche. It's just like traveled around to collect paper, because he has like the craziest paper collection you've ever seen.
Yeah.
I'm a paper whore first, and a cigar guy second. Yeah, for sure. It was from that world, and I dealing with people there, they would give you cigars. It was really all street stuff, and at some point in time,
street stuff.
I started like influencing what was being made, and I really did it sort of amateurishly for friends and family and myself for many, many years.
Out of the Dominican? Or
elsewhere.
Okay, elsewhere. Got it.
And 2013, we moved our
Don't ask too
to the
many
Dominican.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been, we kind of look at things the same now. And also I was dealing in vintage cigars, but really old stuff, like 1870s through the 1930s, like really early boxes.
What's the oldest cigar you've ever smoked?
Good question. I'm too cheap to smoke a lot of the really crazy stuff, but like if I have something full of holes that's 120 years old, I'll light it up. But I probably smoke stuff, turn of the century stuff.
Does it still taste good? Or
It's
taste
very
like anything?
light. I mean, when you get that old, like it's interesting. Like you'll get notes that you would never think of in a cigar, but it's super light stuff. What I have done is sometimes when we get like a really crazy box that like all the wrappers are damaged or they have beetle holes or whatever, I'll bring that to the Dominican, just leave everything the way it is and put a new wrapper on the outside. We call it capa adicional. And so I have some boxes where like the contents were heavily damaged, but we take off the old bands and everything, and then we put the new wrapper and then put the old bands back. Sometimes we have boxes where like half of them have the original wrapper, half of them have this additional wrapper.
That's cool.
But it's like, either you do it or you just have a cigar that's not smokable.
Yeah, there's just something fun and like exploratory and experimental about how you approach cigars.
Yeah. No, I love hearing these stories. It's awesome. Brings it to life.
It's fun. I mean, the people don't realize how important and how big the cigar industry was, and how, I'm into the graphics, of course, but like the cigar industry was massive. I mean, there was one point in time where 1/3 of all federal revenue was tobacco tax.
Seriously?
1/3 of federal revenue was taxed on cigars. And, you had just an enormous number of manufacturers. It was like hugely segmented industry. So they estimate that by 1920, I think more than 1 million factories came and went in the United States. That's factories, not brands. So, I mean, even cigar labels, the labels exist for about 1 million different brands. And you think of all the ones that they haven't found. Like it was just a massive part of everyday life. And
it was all over the country. Because I think even here, like downtown Cincinnati, there's 2 places.
Forget it.
In
Ohio.
OTR where you can see United, like this old signs are still on the buildings. And they were old factories.
Yeah, United was.
You just think it's only in like South Florida that people are making.
South Florida
cigars.
was a tiny percentage of what like New York made.
Yeah,
New York City alone made many, many times what they made down there. I mean, New York City was I don't think there's ever been a place that made more cigars at one given time than New York City. It was. I don't have the statistics here, but it was a massive cigar. And so you'd have a city block where there might be 8 manufacturers because they were all tiny. There's all mom and pop operations.
Yeah, like one roller sitting there.
Yeah.
Making a few hundred cigars a day. Yeah, that is nuts. So I know you have a deep like collection of old cigar art, boxes, bands, and a lot of brands have done this over the years where they bring, they purchase the copyright to an old Cuban brand and they bring it back to life. Why haven't you done that?
I think most of our cigar packaging is not. We're not like trying to look like cigars. Like our stuff is very like Aviators. It's very Art Deco, but it's sort of like industrial American Art Deco. It's not really looking like a cigar box. Like Angelique is so 1960s. Looks like sort of that department store.
Yes.
Kind of marketing. I mean, the Petit Provocateurs are like hardcore Art Nouveau. They look like French perfume branding. So I find it more interesting to not necessarily emulate, but to like work in the wheelhouses of things that I really appreciate in other spheres than just try to have something with a bunch of allegorical gold coins and leaves and nuts. Like that doesn't excite me. So while I appreciate like the branding and the style, I'd rather have our own personality than just resurrect a name, because I think you do that if you can't think of anything else, and I have plenty of ideas.
So what's next?
Well, we're still full-on boy band mode. The next...
Oh, yeah, because this is volume 1, which means there's going to be...
Yeah, that implies something.
That might mean there's more volumes.
He said 90s earlier.
I said that.
Maybe you're going to get the NSYNC cigar at some point.
I don't know. Like our original goal was to do it annually. I don't know if that will happen or not. The big thing we're working on right now is a rebrand and relaunch in the Accomplice line.
Oh, yes.
Accomplice is like... It's a great cigar. It's like they're in our mid-range, we say, but they're always designed to just be a killer for what they are.
Yeah, that Connecticut Robusto is like $8 or $8.50 retail, and it's
so
an
good.
assassin.
Yeah, it's an assassin for what it is.
Deadly.
And,
it's killed at least 3 or 4 people.
You know who likes that cigar?
Who?
The one that he's smoking?
Mr. Bell.
No, Mr. Wick.
Oh, yeah?
The guy who's on sabbatical
Yes.
still.
Our
other owner who's never on a podcast.
Yes, he's never on. We always keep a chair for him, though.
We do have an empty chair for him when he would like to join us one day.
It's filled with things now, so even if he came.
But he loves that cigar.
Yeah, that's his
He's
favorite.
always smoking it.
It's a great cigar, ever-changing. But yeah, the Accomplice series is awesome. Decien, I think when we first opened is right around when you launched it. Or it had been out and maybe I just didn't know about it. But that cigar did so well too, and was a different profile to me than other Accomplices in a really cool way. But it was a different experience.
Yeah, it was a departure from Accomplice for sure. It was the first thing we did with Carrillo.
Okay.
So our goal there was to really try to include some of like the flavors and intensities that they're known for, but deliver it in a very principled sort of way. And I think it worked out. It was a great smoke.
Where does the name Principal come from?
There was I was with a buddy smoking a cigar in my house, and I mentioned to him that I was going to start a cigar company, and he just said, "I hate you." I said, "Why?" He said, because you do everything you say you're going to do, and now I know you're going to do this. And that cigar you're smoking, by the way, he's smoked through a master case of that Vitola. There's one guy. But anyway,
I like this guy.
Challenge
Tell me more about this master case.
You got any more later on?
he has a marketing and advertising company in Nashville, and he tells the story differently. But I'm telling you, I remember like it was yesterday. I have an old French like an enamel street sign that says Rue Principal, and he pointed to it and says that should be the name of your company. And I said, yeah, Principal, and that's literally where it came from.
That is really cool.
I wanted something scalable and also there's meaning behind it as well. It just kind of works, checks all the boxes for us.
Yeah. My first ever experience with Principal was in Nashville at a Frothy Monkey in like 2017 or 2018. I remember going in just for a coffee, and I was big into coffee and getting really, really, really into cigars at that point, like diving down the rabbit hole. I remember walking in and seeing it like a little humidor in like a specialty coffee shop. I'm like, this has never happened in the history of hipster coffee that they would have cigars in the store. And then there's all this stuff on like the write-up on them, how they were meant to pair and the blends. And then I saw it was made at Kellner Boutique Factory. And it was by Principal Cigars. I'm like, this is like a legit cigar. Not just like, oh, we bought a bunch of Monte Cristo Whites and threw them. Right. No shade on those cigars. But, just daily run-of-the-mill cigars, we put them in there. It was like really intentional. And then I met the owner of Frothy that day or that trip or something. And then he handed me a box of Frothy Monkeys. And he's like, here, try them out. It's the Moreva size. And I smoked them. I was like, this is one of my favorite cigars I've ever had.
It's a great little smoke.
That's the first Principal cigar that I ever had.
Was it really?
And it was here when me, you, and Wick had a meeting one morning. And we were drinking coffee. And I asked you, I was like, man, what cigar should I smoke? And that's what you pointed me to.
It's so good.
And that's the first Principal cigar I had.
You know that when we had the idea to do that cigar, there's one guy who's like the owner, and then another guy who's the CEO.
Okay.
And
maybe I knew the CEO, Ryan.
Ryan's the CEO,
Okay.
yeah. And Ryan was a hardcore cigar guy. And like,
dropping.
the owner said, "Yeah, this is cool, but you got to talk to Ryan. I want it to be his company. It's his company. He has to decide." And that's usually when these deals die. But it turns out Ryan's hardcore into cigars. But when I was meeting with that owner, it was me, it was him, and it was Hendrik. And we're on the 12 South Frothy on the side on the deck.
Hendrik was there too.
Hendrik was there. He was in town. And the three of us are smoking little, samples. And this like angry hipster guy comes around. He goes, "Would you mind putting that out?" Sorry, I'm moving out of frame. He goes, "There's a baby over here." And I'm like, okay. And the owner, to his credit, is like really nice. He puts the cigar down, and Hendrik is so soft spoken. He puts the cigar down, and I'm like, what do I do here? And anyway, conversation continues. Time goes by, and another thing I remember like it was yesterday. Eventually, we start smoking again, and this woman comes by, and she's on the phone. She has like the phone on her ear, and she's holding a baby, and she's like rocking the baby, and she walks past us, and she looks, sees the cigar, she goes, It wasn't even her. It was just some angry hipster yelling at us for no reason at all. But anyway, the deal worked.
Life of living in Nashville.
Yeah. It's a part of life down there.
It is. But okay, you're also really into food, and you've always I remember you've always said like there's a few good places in Nashville, but not like some of your other places elsewhere. Have you found any more good spots in Nashville that you enjoy going to?
Yeah, they keep closing. I'm like a bad barometer for food.
If you like a restaurant, it's gone in 12 months.
I don't leave the house there anymore. I mean, like I'm traveling nonstop, so I'm eating in great places. But I don't know. I mean, I don't want to come here and shit on Nashville, but it really is a somewhat overrated food scene. And they're very proud of everything they do. Like when they do something there, they act like they invented it all. They don't do it because you're supposed to. They do it, and they're like, huh? Like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do,
That would be a sandwich.
I've never been to Nashville.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to come down.
Yeah.
Okay. Done.
It's crazy town.
We need to do a Nashville trip. We're bringing Chris. First stop, Darren's front
Every
porch.
time I take a little drag on my cigar, I like intentionally blow it at all of his gear I'm like, I bet his car smells so bad after being in a cigar lounge.
So I already made the claim that I think you're the most interesting man in cigars. Who to you is the most interesting person in cigars? Because you, especially like in the world of, maybe you won't go the factory route, maybe you'll go retailer or brand, but like who is someone that has fascinated you or interested you, or I don't know, maybe has some inspiration to what you do?
It's a great question. I mean, I try to take inspiration from everywhere, like the art world, the food world. I do really, like, I'm not in retail, and I do really, I'm very impressed by retailers that do what you guys are doing here, build community, educate the consumer base. There's so many amazing cigars out there to discover that you're not going to discover on your own, without doing research. And not everyone's going to watch YouTube videos and listen to, some people are just going to wander into a shop and smoke something, and that's fine, right? But there are two types of retailers. There are the type that build that community and, help people discover and build the ability to perceive more and enjoy cigars at more than just the level that they had when they walked in the door. Yeah. And then there are the type of retailers that just leave it up to the customer. And it's, I think it's a really special thing when you can educate and communicate and create that desire in the consumer to want to know more. I see shops, you can just tell when you walk in and, and someone's talking to someone else in the humidor and you think they're the staff, but they're just another one of the smokers there that listens and is excited and is and knows all about the cigars because they're part of that community. And, I think you guys are doing it here. There's a few other folks that really pay attention to that.
I think of Industrial Cigars.
Industrial
I've not had the opportunity to go to yet.
You got to go down there, man.
You told me about them.
They're just it's an amazing experience. They've done it all differently, and I think they're now, with the expansion, the largest lounge in DFW, which is saying something. There's like 80-90 lounges down there.
We should.
I've heard about
we've talked about them.
That's
right. They just do, and I've followed a lot of what they do on social, and just how they operate their business, how they talk about their customers. The experiences they have. It's the Aviator Lounge that they have in one of those.
We have co-branded like the bar space.
It looks so
That's
cool.
awesome.
It looks so cool.
It's really slick. There's a Luciano Lounge. There's Aviator with us, and then there's an Atabay private lounge. Then they have their own Apex Lounge on top of that. So there's actually three different levels of lounges and different memberships, and it's special.
But you can tell the focus is on the people that walk in the door.
Absolutely.
First.
It's
and
education. And they feel, I have friends that say, hey, I'm going to go there. And I say, you don't need me to call ahead. Just secret shop the place. Just walk in and they'll treat you like you're a friend already. Like you don't need the connection. They do that right.
Creekside road trip.
Yeah.
Where should we go next?
But that's the goal. Like we've talked so much about, we've harped on it for so long, but like we're a service hospitality company first. Mm-hmm. We sell cigars. Like that's how we pay rent, pay our bills, continue to do this. But first we meet people where they are when they walk in the door and try and share the excitement of an industry that we love with them through cigars. But ultimately, it's not just transactional. And I think that's really the only way you build something that makes people want to continually come back. Because are we always going to have the biggest selection in our area? Probably not. Are we always going to have the best prices in the world? No.
Industrial literally has, I would say, one of the smaller selections in Dallas, but they've grown to be the biggest lounge. So what does that tell you? And it's like I say, like if you cultivate the environment and you educate the consumers and you just show them what's available out there, it doesn't benefit. If somebody comes in the door here and they get no guidance and they walk on the humidor and they buy something they've heard of, that doesn't really benefit anyone. Like, yeah, they'll sit and they'll enjoy it and have a nice cigar, but on their drive home, they're going to pass 5 other places where they can get that same cigar. They got nothing new out of the experience. They didn't discover anything else. If they come to a place like Creekside where they can, learn something new, be exposed to something that they might not have thought to reach for on their own, it's just a whole nother level, and they will come back. Benefits you, it benefits them.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been awesome.
And our team loves these cigars. Like Noah, Connor, Matt. They love Principal. They've been teaching a lot of people and telling a lot of people about this cigar. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
I think it rubs off. Like they're excited because you're excited because you like.
How can you not be excited when you hear the stories?
I know. It's like the old the old way of selling cigars was smoke and mirrors and mystery, and you just don't know, but you have to smoke it. This is premium. This is excellent. Then brands like you come along where you're like, oh no, this is how we do it. This is what's in this blend. This is how many we make in a year. This is why this changes all the time. And it makes you excited because you feel like you're a part of what you're doing. And it's like, I just want to, this guy's going to tell me, I'm going to keep buying these and smoking these and experiencing principle.
We're definitely a cigar for the nerds, for the cigar nerds. And it's where we live. It's what I love. I love the people. I wouldn't want to do it a different way for sure.
Where's your favorite place to travel to for cigars?
The two countries I enjoy smoking the most are,
Countries.
I would
Not
say,
states.
Those are places.
Not states.
You asked places.
I know. I knew it was going to be countries.
Serbia and Indonesia, both places where you
Indonesia?
can smoke a lot of places. Yeah.
Okay.
Like in restaurants, you can smoke.
Yeah. I mean, Serbia, you can smoke almost literally in every single restaurant. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a hamburger place or a Michelin star restaurant. Like, if the waiter sees you put a couple cigars on the table, he's going to come over and put a cigar ashtray down. Like, it's part of the culture.
Whoa.
I don't know how lounges survive there, because you can smoke in, I mean, they have beautiful lounges, but you can smoke in basically every restaurant. And Indonesia is almost the same. Like, most restaurants have smoking sections there. And when I say restaurants, I don't mean, I mean places with ridiculous build outs that are just super beautiful and comfortable with amazing food.
That you would never expect to be able to smoke.
There's one
especially
Italian
in the
place
US,
I go to in Jakarta. They have, it's a big, beautiful restaurant. And they have a big covered patio, like a huge terrace. You're not allowed to smoke on the patio, but in the restaurant, you can smoke a cigar, no problem. Like, I don't know.
You can't smoke
You
outside.
can't smoke on the
Makes sense to me.
patio, but you can smoke inside.
What you
Whatever.
say?
I said that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It must have something to do with the building or whatever. But yeah, you can. There's so many places to smoke. Those are my two favorite, I think.
Yeah, I always see your photos from Serbia, and I'm like, this place looks insane.
Well, the best place to smoke a cigar is, I think, where the experience is not interrupted, right? You have that great meal, and then you light up the cigar.
Yes.
What's better than that? Like an adult at the table.
Yeah.
When you have to stop and go stand outside or sit in some weird place, or it's just not the same. And so those places where I think you can just have a grown-up night and enjoy your cigar, those are the best.
Nice.
That's a great way to end this, because I want to go do that.
Yeah. Darren, where can people find you online?
Well, Principal Cigars. They can find us on Instagram. Same thing. Principal with a PLE. They can find us here at Creekside. And
Yes, sir. Well,
awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for making the time to come hang
pleasure's
out.
mine.
We appreciate you, man.
We'll keep Go Smoking in this lounge. Keep the Principal Cigars rolling. Thanks you all for listening. Until next time, go smoke in good company. Peace.